There are numerous elements that make a movie great or even better. For most, a great twist can elevate a good movie to a great and a great to an all-time classic. Oftentimes, a twist can be central and of utmost importance to the story being told. Something that once found out, this information recontextualizes the whole movie. The Sixth Sense is a great example of this. To celebrate movies that have some of the best twists, I've scoured online lists to come up with exactly 64 films. Why 64, you may ask? Why are you going with that many? It's March Madness, baby. For those unaware, in March and April, college basketball has a bracket with 4 divisions of 16 teams that play out a single elimination tournament, and we are going to do that here with the 64 movies I've found. And before we get into the list, I want to say, no, Planet of the Apes is not on this list. I haven't seen it. No, Atonement is not on this list. There are definitely a few movies on here that probably come to your mind as great twists, but the vast majority of the films I have seen, and I've got to be honest, I'm happy with the winner. Seating was based upon when I found each movie while going through the numerous lists I perused. There's obviously spoilers for the movies I'm about to talk about. Also, a little bit of the criteria. Obviously, we're going to try to look at the twist at the onset of the judging, then maybe progress onto how good the actual movie is, because let's be honest, the plot is central to the movie, and the twist has a large part to do with the whole plot. The twist has a lot to do with the plot. And then any other additional criteria, if it's really close, I'll talk about as we go through it. Without further ado, there's no better way to start than just diving right into our first matchup, that being The Sixth Sense and Martyrs. Martyrs was the last to make this list and is going up against an absolute juggernaut. Though I really like the twist in Martyrs. Not only that the torturer is a part of a secret society trying to find out about the afterlife, which stems back to our main character's girlfriend's trauma at the beginning, but also that there's truth in the society's operation. Martyrs exists as a movie that is both brilliant in its plot and themes along with the iconic ending, but also somewhat overshadowed for its infamy as a grotesque movie. The ending sits as another plot twist as well, where the old lady blows her noggin off after knowing the truth. This is a close battle, unexpectedly so, between essentially one of the 1 seeds, it could be 1, and then the 64 seed. But The Sixth Sense pulls away at the end. I give it to M. Night. We'll talk more later about why this twist is so good, but Bruce Willis being dead the whole time pretty much made M. Night Shyamalan's career and is synonymous with great movie twists. Next, we have Jacob's Ladder versus Vertigo. Hitchcock is no stranger to a good twist, but this one doesn't really speak to me on the same level, quite honestly. And I do have to say Vertigo is actually my favorite Hitchcock movie, but the twist isn't my favorite of what he's done. Don't get me wrong, the twist is a great element of the story, but it didn't make the movie the same way Jacob's Ladder did. Jacob's Ladder gets the nod. Also, you probably are thinking, hey man, this looks like a cool bracket idea. I want to be a part of it. It should be in the pinned comment. If it's not there now, check later. We'll be there in a Google Doc. Not sure how that's going to work, if multiple people are going to all be on it at the same time, but if so, make a separate sheet, play nice with others, and also be sure to subscribe to the channel because it helps me make more cool stuff like this. Anywho, Parasite versus Inception next. Parasite unveiling the basement was big. The whole film has us following the story of how one family could con their way into these positions very close to the family. But when they reveal that there's a whole world below their feet, it made my jaw drop. Parasite then uses this reveal to make their ending all the greater with the father being stuck in the basement. Inception is a film that uses its twists in a way that enriches the story up to that point. Same could be said for Parasite. Leo had been struggling with distinguishing reality from dream for a long while, and after having spent a long time down there, were given the same treatment, not being able to tell the difference. While I do think Leo's ring is his true totem, it's more fun to look at it through this lens of not knowing. And I give Inception the nod in a buzzer beater victory. Next, we have Oldboy versus Birdman. Birdman is such a great film, but let's be honest, it's greatly outmatched here. Jumping out of the window and full on breaking from reality was not expected, but the darkness of the reveal in Oldboy just put it on another level For me, dog, I go Old Boy by a solid margin. I'm saying 15 plus, y'all. Next, Get Out versus Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. You know, I didn't really consider there to be a twist for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but I pondered it after seeing it on a list and had come to agree. We all know how the story ends with Sharon Tate, but the film changes this in absolute epic fashion. Get Out, the mystery is central to the story. We know something is fucky here, but what is it? When we find out it is central to Jordan Peele's commentary to race in America, it all seems to make sense. This one is almost too close to call, and one I actually flip-flopped on, but I have to give the edge to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood for being a twist that kind of uses real-life history to actually be a twist, if that makes sense, making it very unique. Next, we have Friday the 13th and Black Swan. Jason's mommy being the baddie is actually a twist I think that benefits from the sequels of the franchise. Poor people born well after the first film, like myself, only associate the film with Jason, so it's a big surprise when it's the mom instead. Black Swan benefits from the countless psychological tricks that Aronofsky pulls off. The ending feels like everything is coming together at a fever pitch and that it brings the whole story to a fitting and climactic conclusion. Thus why I give Black Swan the win in a hard-fought battle. I'll say wins by 8. Next is The Matrix versus Us. Truthfully, The Matrix twists, it's so early on it almost doesn't come to mind when thinking of twists. Both films are probably most well known for its twists or kind of game-changing moments. But when you look at The Matrix's plot through the lens that it is a twist, the magnitude of The Matrix is so huge that it's impossible for us to go against it in this matchup. And I go The Matrix. The final matchup in this region is Scream versus High Tension. As a kid, I thought High Tension was really cool, and then I watched Adaptation, which pretty much shit all over the idea, and I can't look at it the same way. Scream by default. And don't worry, you'll probably notice by the length of this video, I'm going to be going much more in depth as we get into later matchups. First matchup in the East, we have Gone Girl versus We Need to Talk About Kevin. Look, we all knew that Kevin was fucked up pretty quickly, but we didn't know it was leaning all the way into school shooter territory. Another twist could be how Kevin did it all with a bow and arrow, but we'll avoid that for now. This makes it tough because Gone Girl is filled with brilliant twists that keep the story alive and engrossing throughout the whole run. The shock of We Need to Talk About Kevin just gets surpassed by the constant evolution of Gone Girl's twists and turns, however. And I have to give it to Gone Girl by, I'm going to say by 7. It's still a tight matchup. Going to The Departed and Knives Out. Personally, I love The Departed, but I never think of this myself as a movie that depends on twists. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, I should say, though. Yes, Matt Damon's death is awesome and greatly enjoyed. However, Knives Out revolved around the mystery, which has us playing along the entire time trying to crack it. We must know who killed, and we're fighting to come up with the answer before it's given to us, but that's easier said than done. For how fun and interactive this movie is with its twists, I gotta go Knives Out by 10, dare I say? By 10, I say. Next, we have The Handmaiden and The Invitation going head-to-head. The Invitation is a double whammy, right? We're trying to figure out what's going on at this dinner party, and then, lo and behold, this shit's going on everywhere. One twist to sustain the movie, and one for us to figure out at the end, for it to be remembered by. The Handmaiden is really special, though, as this film seemingly takes us through a roller coaster with all its twists and turns. The 3-chapter structure serves to give us a twist each chapter and finds a way to end on a twist itself. I gotta give the slight edge to Handmaiden, and I give it by 4. And you will find out, much like Whose Line Is It Anyways, the points don't matter. And they're all made up. I think that's how it goes. Next, Incendies versus Uncut Gems. I still remember watching both and felt both endings when they happen. Uncut Gems has the advantage of us not expecting a twist, so the other surprise elevates the feelings of Sandler's death. With Incendies, we know there's something to be discovered, but we had no idea how dark it would be. I give the edge to Incendies because it had built up the idea in our mind, and the film still surpasses it. Next, we have Donnie Darko versus Split. Donnie Darko is remembered by its cult following for a lot of things, its ending being one. After everything we'd been through, we did anticipate Gyllenhaal's sacrifice. With Split, there was 2 ways it could have gone. McAvoy could have been full of shit, or he could have been the Beast, and the reveal felt special. We were not only allowing a film to push the boundaries of what could happen in this universe, we were cheering it on. All said, I do love the nihilism of Donnie Darko's ending, so I gotta give it the edge by 9. Then we have Fight Club and The Ring. Fight Club is much like The Sixth Sense, iconic for its twist. Finding out about Tyler Durden is a moment that makes or breaks the movie, certainly one that elevates the film. The Ring is great with its twist. The central conflict is trying to figure out a way out, and we find it is more insidious than we expected. While there was once a thought that the girl in the film was a pure spirit only looking for justice, we come to find out only wants to hurt more. While The Ring is really well done, it's fighting out of its weight class against Fight Club, and I have to give Fincher's classic a nod. By 16. Up next are 2 Alien films, Arrival and Nope. Without dilly-dallying too long, I'll cut to the chase. Nope was cool in that instead of a UFO or UFO, it was an alien being. Arrival felt like it had done something special with its narrative, however. Finding out time in the story was crafted using time the way it could be manipulated with this new alien language is just too well thought out and brilliant to not award. Arrival by 20. And the last matchup in the East is Seven and Black Christmas. Now infamous horror tropes, the now famous or infamous horror tropes, Black Christmas has the killer inside the house. It also ends with the killer winning, which is the biggest twist of the film. Seven wins though because the mastermind plot that Spacey's character unleashes is just too damn good and memorable. Paltrow's head in the box. What's in the box? Pitt needing to know what's in the box. What's in the box? And Pitt reacting are seared into my mind because it was so special, and it's hard not to give it this round. We're gonna move on to the Midwest, y'all. Top right, first round. Starting at the top, we have Shutter Island and La Haine. Another close call. La Haine has a shocking finale which serves as the punctuation to the point that is trying to be made the whole movie. Shutter Island feels like a carefully crafted narrative that has its twist central to every little element. For the master crafting of the false narrative of Shutter Island and the weight of the reveal, I have to give it the win by 6. Then we have Mulholland Drive and Malignant. Much like others on the list, Mulholland is something of a false narrative, which could be seen as a negative, but because it is done so well, turns out not to be so. Malignant, quite honestly, is a bit of a hokey twist that didn't really resonate with me, so Mulholland gets by unscathed by 21. Next is The Usual Suspects versus The Cabin in the Woods. This is a real battle, my friends, maybe unexpectedly for me, because The Cabin in the Woods is a film I still remember when I saw it in theaters, trying to crack, unsuccessfully until it finally revealed itself. The Usual Suspects, on the other hand, is one of the most iconic twists, something it should get mad credit for. I can't really give full credence to The Usual Suspects, however, because I knew the twist going in, but I give the edge to it for its notoriety and for how well it plays, having watched again with the twist in mind. Next, we have Prisoners versus Nightcrawler. Gyllenhaal setting his partner up in Nightcrawler feels like such an on-brand move to really emphasize the character we followed throughout that film. But honestly, it can't hold a candle to Prisoners in this Gyllenhaal double feature matchup. The reveal of the murderer, the damage she'd done to those boys she had held captive, and the whistle scene at the end are just perfect twists, and Prisoners pulls away in the end. I go Prisoners by 6. Then we have Memento versus Citizen Kane. Citizen Kane is a film you really have to dig deep to understand why the twist has so much weight. Realizing Kane is a dick but had become this because of a deep-seated animosity from losing his childhood is brilliant once you give it enough thought. Memento operates similarly in that the reveal of Guy Pearce's past completely contextualized who the character truly is. I must say, Memento has way more impact and weight, however, and I gotta give it the edge. I go Memento by 14. Or 17. Next is Hereditary versus American Psycho. Look, the mythology of Hereditary is what gives its reveals so much enjoyment for me personally. American Psycho wins in the impact department, though. Again, the nothing was really real feels like a cop-out, but with American Psycho, it felt pretty brilliant. I give the slight edge to American Psycho, to Psycho versus The Butterfly Effect. The Butterfly Effect I really, really enjoy And honestly, the ending is one of the most heartfelt moments of it all, because you really come to empathize with Ashton Kutcher and you realize how much he had to give up for the future he wants for his friends. But Psycho is literally one of the best twists of all time. And I just don't think it really holds a candle to Psycho. Butterfly Effect easily could have moved on to the second round had it not been placed where it was, or in this matchup, I should say. But gotta give the big win to Psycho by 21. It's just a juggernaut. Now, finally, on to Interstellar versus Dogville. Finding out that Nicole Kidman was the mob boss's daughter had weight, and the ensuing violence was beautiful. After talking through this list with my girlfriend, I felt I had to give Interstellar its due diligence. I thought about how mind-blowing the whole ending was for Interstellar, and felt it outweighed Dogville. I give Interstellar the edge in this matchup. I'm going to say by 7. The last of the first round, The Descent versus Harry Potter's Philosopher's Stone. The Descent is truly beautiful with its ending, as it feels so bleak, but it was always going to overtake Philosopher's Stone, as the ending for that movie is actually a bit hokey for me, dog. I go The Descent by 12. Audition versus Saw is a battle of two movies that are nearly too close to call. Both are shocking with its brutality and depravity. Audition plays against type to achieve its shock, and Saw plays against expectations. Seeing Jigsaw rise from the grave, as it were, is still something I remember. In a damn near toss-up, I give Saw the slight edge for being more iconic. Wins by 2 in regulation. Next, The Game versus The Orphan. I have to shit talk a little bit here. The Game, it is. You know it's a game, then you're not sure, and then the twist is it really is a game. Yeah, it might still surprise you, but doesn't feel as impactful. The Orphan by default. I give it a win by 10. Then we have Source Code versus The Prestige. Source Code works well to keep central information at bay until the time is right to reveal. The Prestige, on the other hand, feels so committed to its eventual reveals to the point that the story revolves around it. The whole time we're trying to crack the case. How does Bale do it? And the reveal seems groundbreaking for both parties. Well, not even Bale, but Bale and Jackman. I go The Prestige by 9. Next, we have Primal Fear versus The Fallen. What we truly have here is a well thought out and executed twist versus a mediocre one. The Fallen twist really fell flat, in my opinion. Primal Fear by 30, and the biggest blowout of the entire first round. Next is the I Am Your Father reveal, The Empire Strikes Back, and The Devil's Advocate. There really is no competition there, though. The Empire Strikes Back will forever be synonymous with pulling this off the best, and it feels wrong to even debate it. Empire Strikes Back wins solidly by 18. Then we have Beau is Afraid versus Reservoir Dogs. I liked Beau, and the reveal feels crazy, but within the realm of what could happen in this film's universe. Reservoir Dogs was great in that they were trying to figure out the mole, and you can watch it back and appreciate this information upon knowing who it is. I give Reservoir Dogs the edge for movie quality and rewatch factor. It wins by 4. The last matchup of the first round is Chinatown versus Don't Look Now. People give Don't Look Now flack for the midget ending, but I think the brilliance is the fact that Sutherland was seeing visions of his own demise. Chinatown has such a dark and dirty reveal that isn't expected, which gives it an added impact. I have to give a solid win to Chinatown for how dark that movie got. Wins by 8. Now that we're done with the first round, I want to remind you again, please subscribe to the channel. I have tons of cool videos for you and appreciate your support. For example, I have a Mindhunter video that I'm currently finishing the series for to write a script for, and a Dragon Ball GT video for those of you who like the Dragon Ball Z video. On top of that, a lot more movie videos that you can watch and appreciate. We're going to stay in the West here as we go onto our group of 16 matchups, with the first matchup being The Descent versus Saw. Again, both endings feel depressing and essentially the bad guy wins. So let's look at the differences. The Descent, we get some hints as the protagonist had hallucinated a time or two before, whereas Saw is pretty much out of left field. You can look at that as either a pro or con for either. I also think that the bleakness of both endings is pretty similar. I think The Descent and Saw are both pretty well known for their twist outside of the violence in both. In a back and forth battle, I give the ever so slight edge to Saw for how iconic it was. Saw by 2 in regulation. Next is The Orphan and The Prestige. The Orphan is a very solid twist that helps explain what had been occurring before, and one so outside the box it really didn't occur to us, even though it is semi-realistic. The Prestige to me is really well thought out though, and completely mind-blowing. The twist also speaks to the level of commitment for each character and feels grounded after all the work the movie does to achieve this. I go The Prestige in a solid victory by 8. Moving on, we have Primal Fear versus The Empire Strikes Back. And it's the most interesting contest of this second round so far. The Empire uses this very interesting reveal to comment on the status of the galaxy and the gray nature that has come into question concerning Luke. Luke, after this film, feels like despite how he has been good up until this point, may be predestined by his lineage the same way he was with his power. It is a great plot decision, not only because of the weight of the reveal and how nobody saw it coming, but how it affects the franchise moving forward. Primal Fear works in a similar way. Richard Gere had talked about his entire philosophy as a lawyer in the build-up to the reveal until it crushed him in the end. Gere had mentioned how the truth was only what he wanted the jury to believe, but this comes crashing down when he is in the lurk with the jury. I find the overall impact in the film itself, combined with the tremendous performance of Edward Norton, to be just enough to edge out The Empire Strikes Back. It wins by 1 in regulation. The last matchup in the West is Reservoir Dogs versus Chinatown. Again, the subtle nods towards Orange being the mole is really cool. All the way in the beginning, we start to get clues that Orange is the one to rat out the other people because he rats out the person who didn't put money in for the tip. Chinatown works in a different fashion, in that we know there's a mystery, but it's like a magician's handkerchief, a thread that keeps going and going until we get to the darkest depths. The incestual relationship between daughter and father is the big scoop of ice cream, and the death of Dunaway is the cherry on top. I give it to Chinatown by 3 in regulation. Now we're going to move up to the Midwest, y'all, with our first matchup being Shutter Island versus Mulholland Drive. Shutter Island puts so much stock in attention to detail, something I greatly appreciate. It also has a dark reveal of murder and insanity, which is further punctuated by the last reveal in that Leo now knows the truth and just can't accept it. Mulholland Drive was pretty mind-blowing in that it had undone a lot of what we watched in the reveal's build-up. Quite frankly, both were mind-blowing, but the impact of Shutter Island was more immediately felt by me, where Mulholland Drive had to be pieced together afterwards. In a too close-to-call matchup, I had to lean towards the film I enjoyed most, as both twists were integral and impactful, and thus give the edge to Shutter Island by 5 in overtime. Next is The Usual Suspects versus Prisoners. Usual Suspects is, of course, iconic, and that is because the buildup of the character in question for the twist is near legendary, and the reveal makes it known that his legend is true because of Spacey's cunning and not the attributes we had expected. Prisoners speaks to me on an innate level. The film feels so carefully crafted, a hallmark of movies that excel within the thrill/mystery genre. Its twist isn't so great just because we don't expect the aunt. It's great because she's evil beyond belief once you see her true face. Prisoners has the added bonus of Jackman's fate, which keeps us on end until the very last sequence. I give Prisoners the edge by 3. With one iconic twist down, we come back with another with Psycho versus Memento. So let's talk about what makes Psycho so great. Not only does the seeming to be lead character die early on, but we're led to believe that Bates is not only a little wacky, but his mom is a monster. The reveal that Norman is both is so cutting edge that it really served to inspire many of the movies in this bracket. Memento is tremendous in that the ending twists illuminate the character. Pierce feels guilt for killing his wife, so much so that he has to find a way to put blame on others and punish them for it. Not only that, but he must have this meaning in his life or it will crush him. Both are absolutely integral to not only the story, but our main character's psyche and picadillos. Though it may be a difficult choice, I have to lean Psycho for how iconic and inspirational it is, and give it the win by, we'll say by 3 in regulation. We're down to another nail-biter with American Psycho and Interstellar, a toss-up with which I could really go either way. American Psycho has the detail, one of those great details being Willem Dafoe's character. For the uninitiated, he would go through scenes talking to Bateman/Bale with the thought that he was sure it was him who was killing, unsure, and then convinced it wasn't, which throws off the viewer and makes up well with the shakiness of the hallucinated circumstances that it seems the story is wanting to play with. Interstellar is great for its themes, that being love is powerful enough to travel time and space. In a film where our initial objective is to find a planet and terraform it, we don't think that time travel will play a role, but it does, and love is the vital connection to making the difference. What I like about it further is that we know this to be true if you've ever felt love for someone from your past, especially someone who's passed away. In a buzzer beater finish, I give the edge to Interstellar for the depth of its themes tied into its twist. It wins by 1. Moving into the South, we have The Sixth Sense versus Jacob's Ladder. As to not drag this out too long, I have to go with The Sixth Sense by a wide margin. Jacob's Ladder does feel mind-blowing with its twist, and it is, but for me, the whole thing being the last moments of a dying soldier does somewhat, if ever so slightly, cheapen it. Against the lesser opponent, Jacob's Ladder would have a puncher's chance, but we're up against one of the Mac Daddies, a film that is shot with the singular fact in mind. Logically, something that could be the case in this universe, but a head-rocking reveal once it comes out. The Sixth Sense wins by 20. Then we have Inception versus Oldboy, and this one is nearly too close to call. Inception, going back to the last matchup, plays with its subject material so well. When you're in a dream, it's often so tough to tell, but imagine you'd been living there. What would the difference be between real life and dream if you could live it? Oldboy is a fucking dark and depraved movie. It reveals so gross and personal, it makes us feel for the antagonist and protagonist, lost for who is right and wrong. The reveal pushes the bounds of revenge further than physical harm or death. It threatens to completely ruin your life and others to the point where death could seem like a relief. For the monumental impact of Oldboy, I have to give it the edge by 3 in regulation. Then we have Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and Black Swan. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood gets by the first round on the strength of its finish. It's a violent comeuppance for a group we have history with, quite literally, outside the movie. Black Swan feels more like a logical conclusion, if you could call it that. Portman had been obsessed with becoming this character that felt so much outside herself that she felt she had to become something else to perfect it. Without Kunis pushing her, in her mind, she could never have become her darker side, the id, as it were, in psychology. By a solid margin, I go Black Swan. We'll say 13. Then we're up with The Matrix versus Scream. The Matrix is really quite groundbreaking. A film that pretty much put simulation theory into the zeitgeist and will likely forever capture that role in our minds, at least to my generation. Scream is really great because it is commentary on the tropes of horror, thus distinguishing itself from the rest of the pack by that alone. 2 serial killers is unique, and the added tie-in that they are so close to the protagonist and had hurt the mother makes it all the sweeter. I have to go The Matrix, however, as it has true staying power, where I feel Screams has lost a little luster as the genre has evolved, where Matrix has not lost its luster. Finishing out the second round in the East, we have Gone Girl versus Knives Out. Gone Girl creates the psychology of a sociopath and narcissist, a woman dead set on manipulating the public at large to get what she wants, revenge, and then finally to be a hero/survivor. She's fully on board with destroying Ben Affleck's life until her own need for freedom and fame overrides this, making the twist so precise to the monster she is. Knives Out is a very good mystery, with twists that come all the way to the finish. The seemingly most innocent is thought to be the culprit, only to be framed by the truly murderous of the bunch, then saved by the sacrifice of the benevolent old man. Though Knives Out makes itself a great movie with its twist, the impact of Gone Girl feels greater than that of Knives Out. Thus, I must give it the edge. Next, The Handmaiden versus Incendies. One of the reveals in The Handmaiden, a film jam-packed with them that really struck me, was the basement of the evil uncle. You knew he was absolutely depraved to his core, but there was something impactful about seeing the octopus there as it left you to wonder of the horrors that took place there. Incendies makes this a complete toss-up, however, as the most impactful scene stems from the revelation that the man who committed the most heinous act against the mother was her own son. We're then given the intimate scene of watching the man as he reads that he committed this act multiple times against his own mother. While the impact of the scene from both sticks with me, that scene being the scene in the basement and the scene of the son finding out his crimes, Incendies' reveal just felt that much more monumental. Thus, I go Incendies by 6. Going on to Donnie Darko versus Fight Club. Donnie Darko felt like the time travel movie for a lot of teens and young adults growing up. It felt edgy and moody the whole runtime, a mystery we couldn't quite crack until the sacrifice happened. Fight Club is a masterpiece that is synonymous with its twist. The twist is the selling point, but the execution is brilliant. Honestly, I feel this is a bit of a mismatch, and I have to go Fight Club by 10. Then we have Arrival won this battle. Arrival versus Seven. Arrival, again, is great. It uses the science of its twist in its storytelling, which is a genius angle. Seven is, like Fight Club, almost synonymous with its twist. What's in the box is burned into the minds of millions because of the impact of that moment, and how that ties into the psychology of Spacey's character feels like it separates itself from Arrival. I go 7 by 7. That's all for round 2. We're going to stay in the East for the Sweet 16. We are now into the Sweet 16, ladies and gents, and if you're still not subscribed, you're making a bigger mistake than when Brad Pitt looked into the box. Staying with the East, we have a monumental showdown between Gone Girl, which apparently I keep misclicking, and Incendies. In one corner is an absolute batshit crazy ex-lover, pulling the strings on public perception of her life and story, then flipping the script to become the beloved survivor/mother. Incendies is as bleak as an ending as Affleck's, as the mother's request sets her kids up to learn of their heinous beginnings and to let their father/brother know what his life has been and that he is still loved. The psychology of both is quite brilliant, to the point that this is damn near a coin flip. If I were to go with the better movie, in my mind, I'd be going the opposite direction. But I feel the conniving nature of Gone Girl and how it is she deviously masterminds everything. I have to give it the win by 1. Then we're on to Fight Club versus Seven. Woo-wee! 2 of Fincher's best go head-to-head in this showdown. This right here is truly a coin flip. In one corner, we have a villain who is truly one step ahead of everyone around him until the very bitter end. In the other, we have a counterculture idol. While the film is trying to point out the negatives of Tyler Durden, it can't be helped that the male youth of America flock to him as some kind of deity, to the point that many miss the point of the film. This is not to be considered a bad thing, however, as Durden is supposed to represent the person the narrator wanted to be. No, not the evil mastermind, but a ripped, charismatic figure who could take back control of his life. And this, my friends, is the essence of why people flock to this character. All in all, there are countless arguments you could make for either side, but I must go with my gut, and that, my friends, is by 1 in OT Fight Club. I believe we're going to go up to the South for our next one. This is another battle of juggernauts with The Sixth Sense versus Old Boy. The Sixth Sense is perhaps the most famous twist in all of cinema, rightfully so, as it plays right into the hand of the movie. Haley Joel Osment can see spirits who don't know they're dead. It makes sense to have Willis be dead, but man oh man, was it still a humdinger once revealed. Old Boy starts mysteriously. Man is taken captive. Like The Sixth Sense, we are looking through the eyes of the protagonist, which blinds us to the potential motivations of the antagonist. We're aware our main character is flawed, but we don't know to look further into his past. We can't even begin to register the monumental impact of why before we are given the second ball to drop, which is that the revenge goes even further. Where our main character was tricked into committing the same disgusting act in which he caught the antagonist doing, which equals sweet, sweet revenge. Because The Sixth Sense is so iconic, I give it a tie with the more impactful twist of Old Boy. As a tiebreaker, I must go with the film that I find to be better, and that, my friends, is Old Boy by 5 in overtime. Next, we have The Matrix versus Black Swan. The Matrix is so well known and the twist so early in the movie that it doesn't even feel like a plot twist to the general public, though its reveal really changes the ideas of those who view it. It makes simulation theory so widespread and, quite frankly, believable for the general public. This should be given credit for that alone. Black Swan has already been praised for its psychology, so let's instead praise it for its performances, which counts on Portman to evolve from the pristine and innocent White Swan to the darker side of herself. Frankly, I have to go Black Swan by 9 in regulation because this just feels like the end of the Matrix's rope for a film that isn't a more customary movie with a twist. Now to the Midwest with Shudder and Prisoners. Look, both have monumental impacts with its reveal that are dark and twisted. We've talked about these at length, so I'll skip to the deciding factor, which is how good the movie is, which goes to Prisoners. Shutter Island feels shocking because it reveals something we didn't even know we were looking for and is so sad in its ending. Prisoners is a bit of a different beast. We know there's a murderer kidnapper and we think we found them. When it turns out it's not them, the reveal gives us insights as to why they seemed like the perfect fall guys, which is because they were damaged from the true predators. Flame me if you want, but the twists themselves are too close to call, so I had to go with Prisoners. Then we have Psycho versus Interstellar, a battle of the icon versus the upstart kid. Psycho is clearly one of the pillars of twists in cinema, being one of the most iconic in the bracket and probably influential. Interstellar plays well with its themes through its twist, but this was never a match that could be won by Interstellar. Psycho by 13 in regulation. On to the final matchups of the Sweet 16, we have Saw versus The Prestige. Both films are proof of how far characters are willing to go for their goals. Kramer playing dead, and Jackman killing himself/clones, and Bale living a half-life and also cutting off a finger. I think this is another mismatch, though, as the twist of The Prestige speaks to me on a completely different level. I go The Prestige by 12. In the final Sweet 16 matchup, we have Primal Fear versus Chinatown. This is a closer matchup than our last two, as the endings have the honor of being completely unexpected and weighty. I will say the ending of Primal Fear is more of a momentous drop, but Chinatown has the benefit of having a big twist prior to the end. That of the incestuous relationship between our surprise villain and his daughter. I'll have to call the twist a draw because of the closeness after taking the first twist of Chinatown into consideration, with the tiebreaker being the movie I feel is better, which is Chinatown, by 5 in OT. That takes us straight to The Prestige versus Chinatown in the first matchup of the Elite Eight, where I like The Prestige the best. I really do think it's a razor close matchup, but for me, when it comes down to the weight of The Prestige's reveal, it feels more weighty. Yes, we are intrigued by Nicholson's case. Who's behind the water shortage? Which just keeps going deeper and deeper.
If you're slapping a bean in the middle of the locker, right, you know for a fact that your stepbrother's about to get back from basketball practice, you're cruising for a fucking bruiser.
Not to mention the fact that it's a fucking great movie. The Prestige is also a great movie, though. I would honestly have to say I prefer Chinatown as a movie. The twist within The Prestige seems to be so much more telling of who Bale and Jackman are, however. You could make the same argument of Dunaway or her perverted dad, even of Jackman, which is what makes this so close, however. It's the drive to not be outdone that has pushed these men to the limit of what is possible or practical. I can't help but love that. Moving up to the Midwest, we have Prisoners versus Psycho. We've talked at length about the absolute powerful iconography that is Psycho as a whole and as a twist. The script is undoubtedly one of the best Hitchcock has put to film, and a large part of that is the psychological illustration of somebody as mad as Norman Bates. Whether or not it wins, like The Sixth Sense, there's no denying that this will be what comes to mind when somebody says movie plot twist. Prisoners is a recent best in my mind and already toppled what many consider to be an elite movie twist with Shutter Island. Both speak at length about the psychology of an antagonist for both films. I've tried time and time again to intellectualize why Prisoners is better, but I honestly can't. And for that reason, I have to go Psycho. This goes to Psycho by 2 in regulation. Moving to the East, we have Gone Girl versus Fight Club. Both films can attribute a large amount of its success to its twists, but also the film's ability to make you see things through the perspective of our main character. We feel a bit like Ben Affleck, and the ultimate revelation that his significant other is a stage 10 psycho makes things hit all the harder. The narrator in Fight Club represents us in a way too, and when we find out Tyler Durden isn't real, it speaks about us, the viewer. I won't beat around the bush any longer. Both films hit extremely hard with their reveals, but Fight Club's just hits on another level. I go Fight Club by 3 in regulation. And regulation. Moving on to our final Elite 8 matchup. It's none other than Oldboy versus Black Swan. Both are dark and tie their respective stories together super damn well. However, I feel this is the biggest mismatch of the razor close Elite 8. For me, Oldboy is just much darker, visceral, and weighty with its twists. Black Swan works extraordinarily well as a psychological thriller and character study that plays with identity, but Oldboy plays similarly, if more extreme. If Black Swan is the story of a psyche splitting and not being able to survive apart, Oldboy is the story of being shattered and forced to exist afterwards. I think Oldboy is a brilliant movie, and quite frankly, it's largely due to its pivotal scenes in which the twists are integral. I go Oldboy by 7 in regulation. In a battle of South versus East comes in our first of 2 Final 4 matchups as Oldboy faces off against Fight Club. Having spoken at length about Oldboy previously, I'll say that the dark elements, the intense, violent nature, and taboo elements of the sexual relationships burn this film into one's mind. Fight Club is a different beast from Oldboy because it is maybe repeatable in theory but not in practice. Oldboy is such an intricate story, well played out, that you'd have to really tell a story well to get close to repeating it. Fight Club, on the other hand, has one element central to its success, the split, which is successful due to an intense attention to detail. I think I may be oversimplifying or emphasizing the wrong parts, but you could recreate something similar or try to replicate the effects of Fight Club, but it's done so well that it just feels like Fight Club has cornered the market on this type of twist. See High Tension, for an example. You're ripping off Fight Club if your main character is someone else, even though Psycho kinda did it first. It does differ in that Durden is the embodiment of strength that the narrator felt he was lacking in his life, whereas Bates couldn't stand to lose his mother. This one goes into double OT because I genuinely swayed back and forth in my decision, and I find both films equally amazing with a slight preference towards Oldboy. Fight Club is more iconic and more in the zeitgeist, as it were, but Oldboy is more intense, and for that reason, I go Oldboy by 1 in double OT. Going over to our final 4 matchup, we have Psycho versus The Prestige. The Prestige is an amazing film where Nolan plays with magic in such a brilliant way. The real magic is science we can't fathom and commitment we can't consider. The real illusion is making peace with the options each lead has chosen. Psycho is the granddaddy of them all. I hadn't even considered how it inspired Fight Club until looking into our last matchup, but it's there and will continue to inspire for years to come. Staying power should be given proper weight, and I am giving that proper weight as far as this matchup goes, because Psycho wins by 3 in regulation. Ladies and germs, I've talked for far too long, so I'll keep the final short and sweet. Psycho is the most iconic and well-known twist in the game, while Oldboy is the legend killer of the bracket, taking out The Sixth Sense and Fight Club. Psycho is groundbreaking and quite shocking for its depravity for its time, but Oldboy is cutting in a way that shocks modern audiences. Oldboy is the new guard and quite simply the best twist, as it wins by 2 in triple overtime. Everyone, thank you for joining me on this long and long-winded journey. I hope you enjoy filling this out yourself, and I will catch you on the flippity floop. And subscribe